of the Berlin city to access Asia or have Asia accessing European markets, right? So what do we do? The biggest thing we do is we do the AsiaBerlin Summit. This is a big conference, 1 week, happening in Berlin. Wonder why? And it happens in the last week of November. Why is it the last week of November? Because of Christmas markets. And those are really cool in Germany. So what happens exactly there? We have 5 days. The first day, we have an official opening with the mayor in the Red Town Hall. Those of you who actually been there, it's pretty fancy. It's pretty cool to have like startups and hoodies running into the town hall and celebrating with the mayor. In Berlin, you can do that. On day 2 and 3, we have actually the actual conference. So that's really a startup conference on the ground in a really cool startup space. You can get booth space for free. You can interact with all the European players that are there, and also vice versa, they will interact with you. You can pitch and so on. On day 4 and 5, we actually interact with the ecosystem, which means we organize tours into the larger Berlin, and you get to see all those cool innovation spaces. But also, for example, I don't know, your embassy might make an event or something like that. Last year, we had 31 satellite events happening on those 2 days. So next one is actually a small video that you get the vibes. It's just 1.5 minutes, and then I'm pretty much done. So that's the town hall.
For me, the Berlin Asia Summit is a window to the world.
So many guests from all our Asian countries.
Great speakers, great people, 17 different nationalities coming together.
Looking very much forward to the next satellite event. Let's go. Then also to work for new formats, new ideas.
I'm super grateful that all of you guys are here.
Thank you very much. I said, make some noise.
This year's summit is very amazing with a lot of founders, innovators, investors, and policymakers.
Explore new idea and build collaboration that move us forward.
Dass wir gemeinsam daran arbeiten, noch mehr Innovationen voranzubringen, noch mehr Startups zu stärken. Es ist für mich eine riesengroße Freude, Asien und Berlin zusammenzubringen.
All right, so those are the vibes. I invite all of you to come to Berlin in November and also connect with AsiaBerlin on social media if you like. This is the website where you can know more about the summit and obviously connect and talk to us tonight. And thank you very much again to Kickstart Ventures for the opportunity and the long years of history that we have together. Anna, hands up there. There's Anna, the lady in the red hair. Right, we can answer all your questions about AsiaBerlin. And we also have an AsiaBerlin ambassador in the room, actually several. Jay is AsiaBerlin ambassador, and Daniel is also AsiaBerlin ambassador. Hands up. Right, you can also ask this guy from Jakarta. He knows everything about AsiaBerlin too. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, so it was a pleasure hearing more about AsiaBerlin and what you can do with them. So you now have a better understanding of Berlin as a top gateway for market access, talent, innovation, and a very uniquely open ecosystem connecting Asia to Europe through Berlin. And yes, Jay was the reason why we were able to join the 2016 pilot run here, no? We were five Filipino delegates, Jakarta, Bangalore, and Manila. And I know more and more founders from the Philippines joined the succeeding years. Okay, we have one community announcement before we introduce to you our main speaker, Mr. Neri. Our next presenter is Kaglobe. Uh, we would like to welcome on stage Karim from M360, who will share with you briefly. This is for the benefit of the tech entrepreneurs in the room, how you will understand turning customer attention to action. So the mic is yours, Karim.
Thank you. Yeah, I always be happy to be here, like rate the fridge event, grab a beer and then socialize with startups to get new ideas, also how the businesses are running. So I'm Karim, and we are running a communication platform, right? And in today's world, engaging with your clients, stakeholders is really important. And what really happens is that most of the businesses makes mistakes, like they do blast to their base continuously without an aim, and it feels spammy for them, right? And also having the wrong time to reach out to the clients is one of the wrong things. So you might have the best product or you might have the best service, but if you don't reach out to your base at the right time and in the right channel, your competitors will always be in front of you. So down arrow, okay. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Martin. So basically, since we're part of Globe and having a good messaging platform, we process a lot of messages, yearly, 26 billion. And then, of course, we're connected with 700 mobile network operators worldwide. So businesses that would want to reach out to OFWs or anywhere in the world, we also offer messaging for worldwide. So again, it's really a challenge. Most of the businesses, they continuously message and then the campaigns are sent, but they don't convert. Plus, they don't have any consumer engagement. So at the end of the day, if you have that approach, you spend and you don't get anything out of your messaging budget. So the challenge is not to actually send useless messages at the wrong time. The idea should be is to getting the customers act. So the shift would be here is going to funnel a customer journey. So each, let's say, a retail company would want to segregate their targets, right? So let's say mommy's buying baby products, and then let's say fathers are into sport products. So basically, you can segment your database and then trying to reach out to their base at the right time. So let's say if there's a football game, a business can easily send messages to fathers and then saying that this sporting brand has a 50% off. So basically, you have to capture them at the right time and in the right channels, because a lot of businesses are also using the wrong channels and the messages do not even get delivered or seen. Also, one thing about communication platforms are important is engagement. So a lot of businesses, they really pour in customer service, or they can't be really well managed having customer service. So what communication platforms can also provide is that you can get to open sessions with someone, and then you can basically resolve a customer service issue, or you can basically finalize finalize a sales. So especially nowadays, the younger audiences, they like to know what they want to buy before they purchase anything, or they want to reach out to the business. So messaging is a simple way to reach out to the base, and then you interact and you try to resolve the issue. And of course, the last thing is conversion. So basically, in the Philippines, the communication channels are SMS. SMS is still the widely used channel in the Philippines. So we provide a sender ID to your enterprise. So it looks legitimate, right? So let's say a customer receiving a message from a number would feel uncomfortable. But if it comes from your business, let's say from your mask ID, where you have the identity, then it adds authenticity. And with this, you can easily send reminders to your base. Let's say if they have an appointment with you, you can send them appointment reminders, or you can simply send promotional messages like what does your business offer at certain point. We also offer WhatsApp and Viber. So WhatsApp and Viber, the advantage of WhatsApp and Viber is you simply can use rich media elements. You can have images, videos, a longer message content, and call to action links. So at the end of the day, the user might be able to see what you offer in detail. But then again, the crucial point here is that to effectively use the messaging channels, and what we can offer is a dashboard where you see the user behavior. So let's say if the user is more active on SMS, you see the delivery rates, or Viber and WhatsApp. So within using the platform power, you'll be able to send the messages to your base for the right channel at the right time. And yeah, lastly, I want to just compare the channels that we have. Basically, SMS is still critical and has wider reach. The advantage of also SMS in the Philippines is that you don't need, of course, an internet connection, and it's always, it has wide reach. For Viber and WhatsApp, of course, the primary goal is the engagement and sales. But of course, the limitation can be the subscriber has to have data or wireless connection. Otherwise, they won't be able to receive the messages. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, we guide our clients, our partners, on how they can message effectively, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't want to waste their return on investment, and most importantly, keep the engagement of their within their clients alive, so they will be able to communicate and always be in top of mind as a brand. Yeah, this is it, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. So if you want to reach out, get more information, you can always reach out to us. Yeah.
Okay, so you can find Karim later as you guys drink stuff over beers. Anywho, time check. It's 6:49. It's okay, making good time. Anyway, we are now going to the main event of the program tonight. Our final speaker, Mr. Neri, is the lead economist at the Bank of the Philippine Islands, one of the oldest banks in the country. And he's always a cited expert when it comes to headwinds that's happening and affecting all of us. And tonight, this is your chance to really understand from your perspective, what are the issues that are affecting all of us, and ask him directly. So please, the Q&A later will be only as good as you make it. So don't be shy in asking questions later. And So tonight, essentially his talk, as he walks us through his slides, you will understand better what are the issues that are hurting your margins, creating openings, and also allowing you to understand how to stay resilient. On that note, let us all call to the stage and welcome Mr. June Neri, our speaker for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I hope you can all hear me. The No, I'll just be here because it's too bright for me to be staying in front. Is it okay? All right. So thank you again for inviting me tonight. Thank you, Minette. Of course, Mike, as well as Selena for having me again tonight. I think it was more than a year ago since I came over to share my thoughts. I hope some of you remembered because presentation last year, I had predictions, no, and for a while I looked very incorrect, no. My predictions looked very wrong, no, for a while, but right now it's actually starting to look very very close to reality, no, our predictions, no, which is that the funding supply will not be as great as it was in 2008 to 2018. It will continue to be a little bit difficult to look for funding, no? And coming from a bank and all our analysis on this, it looks like we will continue to go through some years, some months of challenge in terms of finding easy money or funding. No? Okay, so I have hopefully appropriately entitled my presentation this way. You know, finding our footing. It's hard when you're not secure about where you are at the moment. Okay, so let me try the clicker. Okay, it works. So this will be a three-part presentation with a bonus in the end. Bonus which is hopefully much more relevant to you as startups, as young entrepreneurs, as venture capitalists. I'll try to make it as relevant as possible in part 4 of my three-part presentation. Is that weird? Isn't that weird? No, I have a three-part presentation with a bonus. That's why it's a four-part presentation in the end. So I'll cover, of course, developments since the beginning of this year. Okay, and then talk about the scenarios related to the Middle East, particularly prices going up, no, and growth slowing down, no, how this can affect your business, and then finally, I'll provide a bright side to things. No, where can we suddenly see a good picture in the future? No? In part 3, no? And then part 4 is the bonus. I'll keep it a secret for now. No? But I hope it's very good to hear first two speakers. It's my dream to go to Berlin. I've only been to Frankfurt and some parts of Germany, but never been to Berlin because I was there in the 80s when geopolitics was still very high, between the West and the East. No? So it's my dream. Hopefully, plane tickets will be cheaper later this year in November when you have your event. So okay. All right, I'll, in the interest of time, by the way, I'm just curious, how big are the refrigerators here in RTF? No? Given the crowd, I suppose they're huge. No? Okay, all right. So what's the January-April juggernaut? When I was here last year, I talked about or warned about how the tariff policy and the anti-immigration policy of the U.S. is going to be inflationary, how it's going to be bad for prices. No? I argued that tariffs, because it will mean higher cost for consumers and possibly slower trade across the world, could affect a country like the Philippines and the Southeast Asian region. Also arguing that it's inflationary if immigration is tightened in the U.S. because that will mean less talent available and more expensive labor costs. No? What has been the outcome so far? It's been more than a year since Mr. Trump sat in Washington, D.C., and this has been the effect. No? I hope And for those people who can't see it, I'll just describe it now. So what you see here is the impact of US tariffs on China in particular. And what you see there, the orange line shows an almost 30% decline of Chinese exports to the United States. No? That means that the tariffs were effective against China from the point of view of the United States, right? They prevented China from exporting to them by as much as 75 or going down to 75% of where it was the previous year. No? And you can see that China has been able to export a lot to other countries, but not to the United States. No? But this is the This is a story of China's imports, no? From other countries. No? Sorry. China exports to different parts of the world. And here you see, what does 87 mean? That means that exports of China to the US is still 13% below 2018. So in other words, it's not been prospering, it's been declining, you know, to the tune of 13%. Whereas exports of China to the Philippines, to Asia, no? And its total exports are all up by 57, 64, and 66% respectively. That means, what does that mean? It means that even if China isn't able to penetrate the US anymore, it's actually able to sell more of its products to a good portion of Asia. No? And here you can see for the Philippines, it's actually 64% higher than where it was compared to 2018. Okay? Now, looking at imports of China, who does China import from? It imports mostly from Indonesia. Indonesia's imports in 2026 is already 166% more than it was back in 2018. Most of these are, guess what they export to China? Batteries, electric vehicle batteries, no? Because they produce a lot of mining products, no? Including nickel. They're able to export so much to China. Can you still hear me? It's not distorted. You want me to sit down? Are you going to remove it? Okay. Okay, all right. I just wanted to frame it as balanced as possible, no? To everyone. If I'm over there, some people might not be able to see me from here. No? Okay. So that's why I decided to position myself here. Okay. So it's 166% more. Indonesia is able to sell a lot to China. Unfortunately, who's this red guy over here? It's the Philippines. The Philippines is actually able to sell almost 20% less today compared to 2018 to China. I don't know if it has something to do with that disputed area, no, or the border, no, I don't know. But what's clear is everybody has been successfully able to sell stuff to China except the Philippines. So maybe we sell services more rather than goods, no? Okay, so it's not necessarily negative. It's just the kind of things that we sell to them are very different. Okay. Next, where's the US import from, if not from China? Number one seller to the US is Vietnam. Vietnam is the new big supplier of goods to the United States. No? And it's expanded fourfold since 2018. Okay, so I see a lot of cabs here, of electric cabs here in the Philippines, all coming from Vietnam. I suspect that a lot of them also go to, a lot of similar products tend to go to the US, especially now that gasoline is expensive. No? By the way, if I forget later on, that's where the opportunity is. No? Power, especially solar power, the demand these days is so high. So if you have some kind of innovation related to that sector, like right now, there's a huge shortage of technicians who can set up solar panels to consumers as well as to companies. So there's something there in that ecosystem that you can contribute to. it's going to be a lot. The other thing is, aside from electric vehicles and solar power, education. Education, why? Because the budget of the Philippine government has been reprioritized to build more classrooms to the tune of 160,000 classroom backlog. No? That will have to be filled up from now until maybe 10 years from now. No? So the opportunity is there, and if your business can be involved in that segment, it can hopefully make up for some of the difficulties that we will be encountering because of higher inflation, no? Including higher construction materials, higher everything. No? Restaurant food will have to be more expensive because of the energy that they will be using. Transportation, deliveries, logistics, all negatively affected. Unlike COVID, COVID only hit sectors that required in-person or person-to-person activities. But an energy crisis affects everybody. Everyone who needs energy is affected negatively. Okay? So how do you mitigate that? Look for opportunities in those sectors I talked to you about, in case I forget later on. Okay. So now we're looking at imports of the US. Again, number one, Vietnam. Number two, Thailand. China is the one that isn't able to penetrate now. You're looking at Japan, so maybe we can skip Japan already. But again, Vietnam is the valedictorian here. They're the number one, no? Seller of stuff, no? But just a warning, some of the products that Vietnam exports to these other countries actually originated from China. Okay, so we think that the headline numbers show us that China isn't able to sell much to the US. They're actually able to course it through some of these Southeast Asian economies. China is still the factory of the world. No? Okay? So you have to have some kind of business related to China. So maybe the Berlin Asia, big part of that is China. No? Okay. So I really wish ticket prices will go down later this year. No? Okay. Maybe jump now to the current problem. So for several months, almost 2 years, we enjoyed inflation, very stable. No? Okay, in this country, last year, inflation was only 1.7%. That's actually even below the target of the government. No? But it spiked from 2.1% in February to 4.1% in March. Our forecast for April is, guess what? 5.5%. And if the war doesn't end, if the ceasefire doesn't work, don't be surprised. The small group shouldn't be surprised anymore if it hits 6, 7, 8, and in a worst case scenario, maybe even 10 or 11%. So that will hurt the pockets of Filipino consumers. No? Instead of allocating their money to whatever product you're selling, they'll have to set aside more for energy. Okay? And while we are possibility of brownouts, rationing. No, I was born in the 60s, so I experienced the 70s, where you had to line up not just once, not just twice, but even as much as 10 times in the same gas station, because you're only allowed to load up a certain number of liters in your engine. So rationing. So it's really very retro. My pants are a little bit wide, so reminds you of the 1970s a bit, and the vibe is rationing of energy resources. No? So the increase in the price of diesel was something like 90%. In Metro Manila, something like 90%. Throughout the country, around 70%. No? But that's a really massive spike. No? Of 9.9% increase in transport cost in a single month. Okay. So again, that will increase. We will continue to see increases in inflation in the coming months. No? Okay, it's like a bullwhip, no? So the whip doesn't hit you immediately, but when it hits you, it really hits hard, and it's a little bit lagged. No, it will take some time before it happens. By the way, the increases in oil during the Ukraine-Russia episode uh, were much less than what it's hitting us in this episode, because 93% of our oil comes from the Middle East, no? And the price of oil from Dubai, from that part of the world, have increased so much more than increases in the U.S. and in Europe, which is the Brent benchmark, no? So it's so much more intense this time than during the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Hopefully, it doesn't get prolonged as much as that crisis, no? Another concern is there have only been, I think, 3,000 people repatriated from the Middle East, no, since the war broke out. So that's a small number compared to what is believed to be something like 2.19 million Filipinos who are deployed over there. That's a big number. That's about 40% of our workers abroad, no? Although the contribution to overall remittance is much smaller, 20, the number of people who are literally over there is 40% of the OFW community, no? So that's huge, and we wouldn't want to see them all go home immediately, no? That's a huge number, very hard logistically, number one. Number two is they probably won't find jobs here either, no? They'll be competing with an already very tight, very difficult labor environment. Okay. So this is where we were prior to the war. We're heading towards this, and if it gets prolonged further, that is where we'll be ending up, no? 9% inflation. In a still modest scenario, in a more serious scenario, we could hit 11%, no? So I'm making you feel bad. So maybe you should get a little bit more beer, no, from the fridge, no? Okay. There's always a bright side to all of this. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. The difference between Dubai and WTI, which is the Western Texas benchmark, has never been as wide as it had been in this episode. So prior episodes, the difference was very small. But in this case, because of the Strait of Hormuz being blocked, literally, the gap between global benchmarks and the benchmarks that are relevant to the Philippines was hitting a record high of $40 per barrel. Okay? So brace yourselves for higher inflation. So it's not just oil, it's also fertilizers. And when fertilizer prices go up, which also happened in the Ukraine crisis, you can expect food prices to increase because that's a very important input to food, no? The planting season hasn't really begun for rice, and they haven't really felt the impact on fertilizer prices yet. But they are going to feel it if things don't normalize sometime in June, no? Okay. Right. So how do we know if things are going to normalize or not? Just look at how many ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz, no? There were hundreds prior to the war. There are now about 2, 3, 4, 5, at most 14 at a time since February 28th. No? So as long as that is small, then the inflation threat will continue to be serious. No? Okay? And I don't know anymore who's blocking it. Is it Iran or the US? I don't know. Have you heard of the latest? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. What matters is we see more ships passing through because there's so many commodities that pass through there. Not just, not just oil. There's LPG, LNG. Qatar, I think, supplies 20% of the global output of LNG, and the plant got completely destroyed. So that will not be, or significantly damaged, if not completely destroyed. It will take time before we get that amount of LNG coming in. And there's refined oil, sulfur, urea related to fertilizers that will continue to be in short supply as long as that strait is closed. Now, by the way, before Hormuz became an important household word, in the Philippines, how many Filipinos are in this room? Maybe 80%, no? So before Hormuz, it was Hermes, right? Right? That was the talk of the town, Hermes, and the investigation that was taking place related to flood control programs, right? So, okay, so that's why it's from Hermes to Hormuz. Yes, that's the story of part one, no? Hopefully, we can still work on that Hermes problem, no? So that we can make up for this negative effects coming from the Middle East. So that's actually it. I should have put here, if you remove this cover, the red cover, under that, underneath is from Hermes to Hormuz. Okay, okay, that was the story. Because we were hoping so much that this year we will see a recovery from the ghost projects issue last year. No, we were hoping there's been a realignment in the budget, as I mentioned earlier, away from public works to education, and that reprioritization would have actually translated to a faster performance in the economy. Historically, whenever we spend more on education, on human capital, on health, the economy grows faster. History shows that, and I'll show that to you later on. But when we put more budget in the public works, the economy tends to slow down. And the hypothesis there is some of the funds are being pocketed. Okay, it doesn't really have a multiplier effect on the economy. Okay, so now we jump to part two. What are the scenarios? And again, you have to have more beer before you look at my tables. No? So prior to the war, and if there had been a ceasefire, we were projecting we would grow about 4% this year, 4% again next year, and 5% in 2028. But this has already been overtaken by events. Now, we're already 2 months into this crisis by the 28th. No? All right. And unfortunately, in that case, and so much damage has already been made on facilities, and the physical delivery of oil is going to take so much more time because the Hormuz Strait is still not open. It's going to look more like 2.8 growth this year instead of 4, 3 next year, and around 4.7 in 2028. So it means 2028 will be the earliest year of recovery if things don't improve immediately. Okay? That will also mean the exchange rate will settle at 61, only improve further next year and in 2028. And the funding thaw, the funding issue will become an issue again. It's like we're going back to 2024 when interest rates were at 6%. We'll be heading back towards that direction again this year. So again, I mentioned at the beginning, my prediction is there will be no improvement. I was wrong. There was a bit of an improvement. Unfortunately, it was temporary. It's going to be taken back again. Funding is going to be challenging again for everyone. And you're lucky that you're close to this group to kickstart, because they'll provide you with the necessary funding. But they will prioritize. They will prioritize. That's what's important. Okay. And then, yeah, so we don't actually see rates going down where they were in 2025. I won't show this anymore. It's too drastic. No, no more, no more. That's a super seriously negative scenario. Okay. Now, on top of that is weather. The weather's not going to be great. You're probably wondering, why are you wearing a suit? In this event, everybody's wearing, I should have copied Karim's attire, no? Although I may not have pulled it off. I will look like a DOM. That's how we call it in the Philippines, no? But the probability of El Nino is increasing significantly based on recent weather patterns. And that could aggravate an already serious outlook for expensive oil and expensive everything. You know? So that's it. I didn't want to show all of the tables. You have copies of it, so you can stare at them while you are having your own drink at home. Huh? Okay, but the key takeaway there is there are many other risks. Even AI disruption in the US, because there's been a significant increase in the valuation of stocks in AI in the US, there could be some correction at some point because they're priced for priced to perfection. All right, so that's also a risk, no? But I won't elaborate on that. So I'll now move to part three, which is the upside. I have to go home with an upside vibe, no? Okay, focus on the green line, the very bright green line. That's spending of the Philippine government as a share of GDP. Okay, so the higher the number, the more intense the spending, the more spending spree mode the government is. And that's been the case since the pandemic, right? You notice it's been more than 20% since COVID happened. No? And it's never gone down. It's still at 21.1% as of 2025. Okay? So intense spending on the part of government. That's actually good, right? It's good if it's moving in the economy, if there's a multiplier effect. No? But the question is, where did the money go? Unfortunately, a good part went to public works. No? It should have been, I mean, if it was spent more wisely, or if it actually circulated in the economy, that would have been good. And you notice, no, education used to be the priority of the country. It fell much, much lower than public works. No? Now, what's the effect? So this is a regular regression line or a correlation analysis that shows you that whenever public works spending increases as a share of the total budget, the growth of the economy slows down. In other words, it doesn't seem to be good to be delegating public works to the public sector. Better to be partnering with the private sector, right, for public works, because there's a lot of waste that happens there. Whereas for education, whenever spending on education goes up, GDP tends to grow faster, right? Because it falls in the hands of teachers, falls in the hands of education institutions, and there's probably less leakage. So realizing that, what did the government do? Oh, by the way, what happened to the backlogs? In 2012, 2014, all the classroom backlogs in history were erased during that period. Unfortunately, they introduced K-12. That's why there were more backlogs shortly after. But that's good for the economy to have K-12, I think, in general. No? But in 2022, we hit a record high backlog in classrooms. What are designed to be a classroom for 35 kids is being filled up by 70 kids 3 times a day. So 3 shifts of primary school students that are being squeezed into a room designed for 35 with 70 students. You can just imagine how difficult it is to learn in that kind of an environment. And it has grown to 165,000 because precisely there has been less prioritization of classrooms. So what's the key to making the economy growing faster? Reallocate away from public works into education. And that's what the government was actually planning to do at the start of the year with the help of the private sector. They're actually doing it now. I think Price Waterhouse is the key agency to speak with if you want to partner with them. Realignment of the budget plus the private sector would have been the formula for recovery. There's also, if there are donors here, ADB, the World Bank, JICA, they all gave us money to build bridges, but we don't provide a counterpart funding. Our congressmen did not provide for those because they wanted to be, allocating into their own budgets. No? So we were deprived of the accomplishment or the establishment of all of these subways, and because they did not provide a very small amount of counterpart funding. The one was right of way. No funds were given, or very little funds were provided for right of way, which is important to be able to finish many of these infrastructure projects, right? So now that the administration has realized that they are now paying in cash, and they've come up with all forms of reform to allow right of way to happen more efficiently. So there it is. No? Education finally gets a bigger share of the pie again. And we were hopeful prior to the Middle East crisis that this would actually translate to a recovery of the economy in the second half, if not the last 3 quarters of the year. But it's become more challenging now because a lot of subsidies have to be provided to farmers, to the transport sector, to fisher folk, no, to MSMEs, no, who need the funds to be able to cope with a crisis. No? And the likelihood that education will get all their budget has probably gone down. And again, let's learn from President Ramos, who provided as much as 5% of GDP in PPPs. No? None of his successors were actually able to bring up PPPs to the level that he was able to bring it to. No? When he liberalized telecommunications and many other industries in the Philippines. Okay. Maybe I can skip that. Tourism, what's going to happen to travel? People are afraid to travel abroad. Maybe there's a bright side to domestic travel, although gasoline prices are more expensive. The fact that people are afraid that they can't go home from abroad makes it more attractive for them to travel here in the country. You know? So maybe there will be a shift towards domestic tourism, except that if gas prices are just too high, it may be completely. What does this show us? Again, the Philippines is down here. Our visitor arrivals are about 30% below pre-pandemic. No? We haven't been able to bring back foreign travel to our country the way Vietnam has been able to bring in 16% more visitors compared to 2018. So now we go to the bonus topic. By the way, you have to greet me and my bank or my company. We will be celebrating our 175th year this year. The oldest bank in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, and maybe even Asia. No? So not a very young bank. That means a lot of experience, and we've seen all of these crises. We've been here in the 70s, even the first COVID or even the Spanish flu. No, were we here already? Yeah, maybe. But the bonus topic is about interest rates, funding. Again, the BSP raised. By the way, they raised interest rates 4 hours ago from 4.25 to 4.5% because they know of what I just shared with you earlier, that inflation is going to pick up to 5.5% in April, maybe 6.5% in May, maybe 8% by August. No? Maybe, I didn't say it will. And they will have to increase the interest rate further. No? This has been updated already, by the way, 4.5% already. No? That's how quick my staff are. No? They innovate. No? They take a look at 4.5%, even if it goes up to 5.5%, which we're predicting. How does that compare to history? Except for that period of 2008 to 2021, it's actually still quite low. 5.5% is still quite low historically. No? So don't feel so bad. And in fact, some of the great innovators emerged during these difficult years. No? And unfortunately, we lost him this year, Mr. Banatao, probably the most famous innovator in Silicon Valley. No? He invented a chip, that integrated chip, no? That made personal computers more affordable to everyone. No? And interest rates during that time was double digit. So you cannot say that low interest rates is what's necessary for people to be more creative and more innovative, because he did that at a time when interest rates were very, very high. So if we see an environment close to that, not similar to that, because without interest rates will go to double digit again. If we go to a similar situation, as we did actually from 2002 to 2004, right? We had the Russia-Ukraine crisis. There will be innovators out there. And in that particular episode, I think it's clear it was AI, which really innovated a lot in 2002 to 2000, making it more accessible to the consumer. Used to be that AI was only useful for large-scale institutions, large-scale computers. Now it can be used by anyone. Before I went out of the room, I was doing some research using AI. No? And this was made possible by relatively high interest rates back in 2022 to 2024. In other words, it is not a necessary condition for innovation to happen, no? For interest rates to be very low. So that don't be discouraged. If rates go up, doesn't mean that there will be no startups, there will be no innovations, no? Except that the nature of innovation is very different, no? They call it foundational, I think. I'm not an innovation expert. Okay, versus the types of Uber. Uber took, what, 10 years before they became profitable, right? That can't work in an environment of relatively higher interest rates. You have to be like Dado Banatao. It has to immediately translate to cash flow. The invention has to translate. So what did the big tech folks do? They had so many projects. They had hundreds of projects when interest rates were very low. But when interest rates went up and money became more scarce, they dropped all the other projects and focused on AI. And look what it's done for us. It's enabled us to become more productive. Although some of us are already being disrupted. No? 2 years, 3 years from now, you don't need me here. No? Somebody else will be doing it. Maybe a computer will be doing it for me. No? But I just wanted to draw the parallelism because, again, I think we have to remove that from our biases, that it's completely necessary for interest rates to be low and funding to be very, very cheap for innovation to prosper. Okay? That was AI generated, by the way. There's a lot of literature to support this point. And let me demonstrate or explain a very, this one I showed to you 2 years ago, the shot clock. No? Basketball would have been a super boring sport without the shot clock, right? Now it's one of the most followed sport in the world because of that 24 seconds, right? In the same way, if interest rates are zero, you will have too many projects and life will be boring, right? But if interest rates are positive, you'll be more focused and more likely to emerge with something really brilliant. That's my understanding of it, okay? So how about real estate? There's this misconception that when interest rates are low, housing will be more affordable. Sounds correct, right? Lower interest rates, housing is more affordable because your amortization is theoretically going to be lower. But don't forget that when interest rates are set low, there's speculation on the price of property, such that the principal that you need to cover or you need to be able to pay for actually increases in value by so much that the amortizations that you will be paying will actually end up being bigger than if when interest rates were higher. Okay? And again, there's literature to support this, no? So, because low interest rates increases housing demand, property prices tend to go up. That's why people call us, Gen Z call us, what's the older generation? Boomers, diba? Boomer, right? Because you have property, we're able to buy when things were still cheap, diba? It's true, because young people now will find it very hard to afford property because of the low interest rates that we had in 2008 to 2021. And that's all over the world. And that includes Berlin, I think, no? So be careful what you wish for. Low interest rates are not necessarily good. Yeah, so there are a lot of literature to support that. It doesn't improve housing affordability. There are many things that can improve housing affordability. The Federal Reserve has people researching on that, and they say the same. No? Okay, here in the Philippines, property prices have increased by so much. Per capita GDP only very minuscule. So if people aren't seeing incomes increase and property prices continue to increase by so much more because of low interest rates, then it doesn't really solve the problem. Okay, and here are the price indices in different parts of the country. For the entire country, it's been increasing so much. There are still some inexpensive places to go to, you know? So some of you might want to retire in the south, maybe in the Visayas area, in the Mindanao area, while they're still affordable. So again, key takeaway 1 from Hermes to Hormuz, key takeaway two, the flare pants in the 70s. That's the vibe we're into now because oil prices are going up again, no? And there are consequences, as I mentioned. And then finally, there's optimism that if this suddenly stops, there's a resolution and ships are already allowed to pass through the strait. We can see a recovery come from a reallocation of the budget, and with the help of the private sector, PPPs can be complemented with this reallocation of the budget to see our recovery. To see a recovery for the economy, which grew at a very disappointing pace of 4.4% last year. So, believe it or not, that's my last slide. I've earned my beer.
Amazing.
Thank you very much, and
Hello, hello.
I hope you learned a few
Hello.
things from my footnote.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Amazing, Mr. Neri. As we transition to Q&A, let me just give June a moment to
Yeah.
hydrate.
Is this gin or?
We can make it gin
No,
later.
no, just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay, so time check, it's 7:30. We will have 15 minutes for Q&A to June. And because we have 15 minutes and it's a very well-attended audience, please make sure that when you raise a question, just stick to one question so we have room for others to ask their question. So not one question piled with another one. So otherwise, I'll cut off the sound. But please keep it brief and concise. Also, in case you have a question that is meant for a government official to be answered, just don't raise it to June, unless June would like to answer. Yes. So keep it to his lane. Hands, please, who would like to ask questions. So I have colleagues who have microphones, and they will go to you. On this side of this floor, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, who? Yeah. 3, 4. Okay. Alex. Wait. Kyle. Kyle. Yes. Huh? Okay, I guess. But Selena's on to you. Okay, let's start with this side of the floor. This gentleman and the guy at the back.
Hi, good evening. Are we on? Yeah. Hi, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Nigel. I'm a consultant here helping companies grow to their full potential. I'm based in Manila. Thank you. Also good to hear about the education investment, which is, I think we all feel that is needed. It's great to hear. But the question is more regarding the global effect on the Philippines and import-export differential and our manufacturing. So we are currently importing, I believe, twice as much as we are exporting. So we are an importing nation. What do you see? So this makes us rather vulnerable, right, in our geopolitical circumstances. Are you hopeful about increases in investments in manufacturing in the Philippines, or do you think it's late? What are your viewpoints on the future of manufacturing in the Philippines?
Yeah, so I think there are pockets of opportunities for manufacturing. Probably not the large-scale manufacturing plants of China and Vietnam. There are a lot of technology like design related. No? So the what do you call this printing, 3D printing, no? For example, it requires a very small amount of space, but because Filipinos are very creative, we think that's a space that can really grow with a lot of support, of course, from financiers and other areas of the private sector. No? So there are niches we think that the Philippines can be good at immediately. No? But you're right that we need to have some kind of industrial policy that will reprioritize manufacturing, especially from the experience that we're going through now. We don't have enough food security as we import a lot of stuff from abroad. We're the biggest food importer. The same with energy. and many other goods. No? So if we are to learn anything from this crisis, it is probably to be a little less dependent on fossil fuel. Uh, BPI is a very supportive institution for renewable energy. We've raised a lot of funds for renewable energy projects, and we also partner with the IFC, no, for this, no, so that you can get more favorable funding. So we've learned from this episode that it's better to go solar, it's better to go coal, even, no, although BPI doesn't fund coal projects anymore because we've moved to the renewable space. But personally, I wouldn't want to stop people investing in other areas, even if it's non-renewable, as long as it means that we're not getting more and more dependent on fossil fuel. No? And a lot of that requires some amount of manufacturing, like bringing back the refineries, some of the refineries that we gave up in the past. No, we used to have Shell and Caltex running refineries here in the Philippines. Now it's only Petron that's left. No? So if we can restore those and revive or even build some more, then maybe just to ensure that we don't become too dependent on imported refined fuel, but many other sectors that we can maybe become more competitive in. No? So I agree with those who say that manufacturing should have some kind of a renaissance in the Philippines. The problem, though, is we are not competitive in many areas. Electricity is expensive, logistics isn't so efficient, and many other things. Maybe we should learn from Germany. Germany doesn't use trucks. I think they use trains to move things around. No? And they have dedicated railroads for this. Philippines is very car-centric, truck-centric, and it's very costly. And again, with higher oil prices, it doesn't help. So I believe in reindustrialization, but I'll probably be too old to enjoy that. Yeah. Maybe my grandchildren will enjoy it.
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Neri. Thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate you covering the trade wars. I understand that the Philippines runs a current account deficit and is deeply integrated into global supply chains, right? One example would be the export of your semiconductors and other assorted electronics. Given that, what do you think is the relative impact of the current administration's tariffs and their effects on your country versus neighboring peer states like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc., all of whom are competing for the same global foreign direct investments? Thank you.
Whose tariffs are you referring to, the US?
Yes.
Well, I guess the bright side to this is we're not really, as asked by Nigel earlier, did I get your name right? We're not really a manufacturing powerhouse. Merchant exports is not really our strength. It's really more about services and remittances and outsourcing that brings in the dollars for us. No? And as far as I know, the protection there is not as intense as the protection on goods and services that the U.S. Goods that the U.S. wouldn't want to be entering, so that they can revive their own manufacturing and maybe defense manufacturing capabilities. No? But so far, we actually saw last year we saw a 10% increase in exports to the U.S. despite the higher tariff. So it looks like it hasn't had any negative impact on us. No? But down the road, I'm not ruling out the possibility of us getting negatively affected by it, especially now that energy has become so much more expensive. So again, countries like Vietnam, who are very keen on prioritizing certain sectors or industries, making them globally competitive, are the likely winners in this kind of an environment, regardless of the tariff, or as long as their tariff is not any much higher than everybody else. No? So these kinds of countries that have very clear focus on where they can be strong at will be the ones to thrive. Thailand will have problems because they have a demographic challenge. They're aging so much faster than everybody else. Their car industry has been disrupted because of EVs. Thailand thrived during the ice age. How funny that is, no? The ICE age, the internal combustion age, no? Because the Toyota and all the other Japanese car manufacturers come in and they would be able to supply the upholstery and other components of the vehicles that provided a lot of employment. But now China wants all of the components to come from China. So a lot of Thai nationals actually lose their jobs in the process. And many other sectors in Thailand have been disrupted because of this phenomenon of shift or pivot to electric vehicles. And Indonesia, very clear about nickel, right? Instead of just exporting raw nickel, they made sure that they were able to produce something that's processed and higher in the higher value added chain. Now for the Philippines, it's in the, unfortunately, we spent less on education. We under prioritized primary education. And yet we want to thrive in BPO, in outsourcing. So there's a mismatch there. You're not providing the necessary resources to enable your outsourcing sector to sustain its trajectory, you know. So health is the same. So if you're not putting enough money for health, then that means the kind of people we will get for BPOs are not really the kind of quality we need in an upgrade of our value added.
Thank you. So we'll have last 3 questions. So please make it count. 3 from this side.
I'll make it count.
Yes.
Hi, Dan here from Cybersecurity and IT. From the recent events, the Russia-Ukrainian war seems to have taken a back seat here, and it was implications on commodity prices, specifically wheat. We also saw over the last year a speculation with regards to precious metals such as gold, silver. That seemed to have plateaued in the recent weeks and recent months. What are your takes on those with the implications of them to the Philippines in general and the future predictions on them?
So are we focusing on precious metals or just commodities in general?
Bit of both, because they're both critical in manufacturing industries, which the Philippines have, as well as wheat being an importing country of wheat for the Philippines, an agricultural country as well, that we need it.
Yeah, well, we're not really gold experts in the bank. No, we don't trade gold. We mostly trade in U.S. Treasuries and Philippine bonds. No, so we don't have a strong call on those sectors. No, but clearly, in an environment of rising inflation, commodities in general are used as a hedge. No, to protect yourself from losing your purchasing power. No? The problem is not too many retail investors have access to trading these kinds of assets, no, asset classes. No? Maybe the semi-wealthy or the wealthy are the ones who have access to it, or maybe there are funds that handle it. But I know of very few here in the Philippines, especially the big banks. No? So hard to make a strong call on that. Even the Philippine government had some challenges with that. They sold gold, I think, a couple of years ago, when it has increased by about maybe 60%, 70% since. No? So they lost the opportunity to earn that much more because it was a call on their part that they think the price of gold has already peaked. No? They already made a lot of money actually in the process, but they are not going to make as much money as those who had bought and held on to that commodity. No? So that's my generalist answer to your question. We're not really an expert in that field. No?
Thank you.
If I had the money, I'd buy more gold.
Me too.
Wheat prices, what I know is a lot of those commodities I showed earlier are being blocked in, even semiconductors, a question earlier. Helium couldn't pass through the Strait of Hormuz, making it a threat for the price of semiconductors going up. I'm not too sure about wheat, but wheat will definitely be affected by fertilizer. And even the U.S. itself, which has a big food production sector, will be hurting in the process. No? So yeah, I think wheat prices are going to go up just because the inputs themselves are going to go up. So I don't know. I'm not a commodities speculator, but I think it's really still on the way up now. Just make sure that you time the selling at some point when you think when the crisis is close to its end, and maybe you can already start taking profits. Not be too greedy, looking at the very peak of prices before you sell.
Okay, salamat, sir. Alex, please. If you
Yeah,
please.
my name's Alex Tibol. I'm asking a question as an economist also, and uh, and the role of banks as capital allocators, okay, as well as venture capital's role. Um, let's say we see the Strait of Hormuz scenario lasting for a year, 2 years. Okay, so we're going to have shortages in fossil fuels, shortages in fertilizer. Where should the money go to address this? Where should the money go to take advantage of opportunities created by a world where there's low levels of fossil fuel, there's lack of fertilizer, and so that's my question.
Yeah, so self-sufficiency in terms of power and food, no? Those are probably going to be the positive prospective areas, no? Because especially, I mean, what lesson did we learn from this episode, no? The very important lesson is you cannot just completely depend on fossil fuel and other countries for your own produce, no? So clearly there will be a lot of demand for electric vehicles. BYD is running out of supply, no? That's our sister company, and it's also expensive to be shipping them here in the Philippines, so you'll have to pay a higher price now that we need to bring more into the country. Again, solar is going to be big. You know, I can imagine a communications company like Converge will have a hard time selling their products. There's no electricity. So I think it's a good idea to bundle the service with some kind of energy bonus, no? And again, BPI will be here, and other banks will be here to fund those kinds of prospects. Now, again, education is the other sector. Our manpower will always be here, regardless of how much fossil fuel prices are going to be, and we need to keep investing on them. And again, I encourage everyone to try to be involved in this drive of the government to reallocate towards more budget, not just for education but health, because malnutrition is a big damper on the quality of thinking and students that we are able to generate. So it's not just classrooms that we need, but health services, and also the food programs that will allow the young people to learn faster. So those are many areas. Those are key areas that we think that will do well. And again, I wish I had built my solar panels before February, but now it's getting more expensive. Still, I think it's a worthwhile investment should the next Middle East or some other geopolitical crisis lead to oil prices going up by so much again.
Thank you.
I will answer you, Martin, if they don't give you a chance. I will answer you personally.
Let's go with sorry. I'll go with Kyle, and then we'll close with you. Okay.
Yeah. Good evening. So Kyle from the Business Manual, writer for them. You outlined very well how there's three scenarios.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, you're welcome. But you pointed out three scenarios in many of those stats. The pessimistic, where it could have been a ceasefire, to kind of where we are.
It's optimistic.
The
if there's a
optimistic.
ceasefire, yes.
Yeah. To the middle of manageable but still painful. To the third, which is very painful, which we don't know how that's going to play out. What factors or what key things are you looking at to determine whether we're still in the manageable, or are we shifting away from that and towards something more
Yeah,
even
our proxy indicator is diesel pump prices. Diesel pump prices. No, because when diesel prices went up during the Russia-Ukraine crisis, We also saw fertilizer go up. Now, many other commodities became expensive during the. So we're not able to completely capture it this time around. But diesel is really so much closer to the ground here in the Philippines. Even some restaurants use diesel for cooking, not LPG. And again, talk about farmers, talk about the transport sector. It's mostly really diesel. No? And so what for those three scenarios, we assumed $95. I know 95 pesos per liter for the ceasefire. For the manageable but still intense, that's 150 pesos per liter. And then for that super intense, that's 200 pesos per liter of diesel. So those were the main assumptions that would have already captured all of the other indicators that would translate to those scenarios. So that was so that it would be simple. We had to simplify it that way. So it's
Thank
the
you.
proxy.
Salamat, salamat. Martin, as our final question.
Hi, thank you. I have learned so much tonight. Thank you for that first. My question is, you were just outlining very well how the production side of things is not really the utmost driver of the Philippine economy, and that services, especially like BPO and so on, are. So now on that end, we see the AI revolution kind of like kicking through, and the factum that projections show that in the next years employment will go down in that end. How do you see this playing out in the Philippines in a larger sense?
Yeah, that's a very important issue right now. No? The disruption coming from robotics and AI, which is why precisely we should start really working on pivoting towards more production, some towards more manufacturing, improving productivity in agriculture, so that self-sufficiency, not really self-sufficiency, but food security is ensured, no, energy security is ensured. But for AI, there are still some niches we think that Filipinos can thrive in. Like Filipinos are more engaging, we're more patient, no? So if you talk to or you get the services of a Filipino on the other side of the world, from the other side of the world, or to the other side of the world, we don't get that impatient attitude that some other countries tend to have, no? So we're I think that's a strength of Filipino that
I think AI is very patient.
yeah, well, you're right about that, but it's not just about general information and specific information, but just the steps that have to be taken along the way, and somebody really being with you in but you're correct with this technology. So we recognize that, no? But all the more that we need to train people to complement AI for productivity rather than making it a substitute to us workers. No? There's a lot of virtual assistants being disrupted in the process because of this technology. It can actually serve positively as a tool to to involve human interaction, and at the same time use the speed by which efficiency by which AI can complement it.
So bottom line is still education.
It's still education, health, human capital in general that should be prioritized. Of course, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be building infrastructure, except that it should not fall in the wrong hands. No, not go to Hermes. It should go to a much more productive kind of investment.
Well, on that note, June, we feel honored for your time tonight and sharing your
Thank you.
key points to our audience. So before I let you go, June, for those who know of anyone, colleagues, friends who missed tonight's talk, where else can we where next are you off to share the same presentation? Yes.
Check. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're our client, we have a free briefing tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, nice.
So
What time?
you can open an account tomorrow morning and no, I'm just kidding. These are existing corporate clients who will be listening to us tomorrow afternoon.
So if you're a corporate client, yeah, take
Yeah,
advantage
but
of that.
you can catch me tomorrow morning in Money Talks with Kathy Yang.
Okay. So tune in, Money Talks
Yeah.
with Kathy Yang.
And then you would usually hear me in ABS-CBN Teleradyo once in a while. 2 weeks into the crisis, I said there's a huge risk for the Philippines. So this, because marunong din ako mag-Tagalog, malinaw ako mag-Tagalog. So, kaya they are confident to invite me. I can talk about belt tightening, maghigpit ng sinturon, di ba? During times like this, no? So don't worry, you'll be seeing me around. Before I retire.
Well, thank you really, June. Our privilege to have you here. As you know, BPI is our LP. So thank you so much, sir, for spending Ray the Bridge with us tonight.
After Kickstart, you can go to us. And if you graduate, you can go to our SME loans. No, we provide. We've increased our SME loans by threefold in the last 3 years. So
nice.
That's how much we're supporting the sector.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we end the program, just a few housekeeping. So as usual, we have a survey. Please scan the QR code and share us your thoughts about tonight's Rate the Fridge. And from last month's Rate the Fridge, we do pick a winner. So is Besbin here? Is he around? Where are you? Okay, you won a voucher from us, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about last month's Rate the Fridge. You will get the same if you answer for the one tonight. So on behalf of the Kickstart Ventures team, you see them around. Maraming salamat for joining us tonight. And as always, we have one rule in Rate the Fridge. You have to make 10 new friends. And please continue to... June, I have a answer to your question. It fits because we don't put anything else in the fridge, just beers. And we keep replenishing it. So